Have you ever met someone who completely shook your world, someone who challenged everything you thought you believed? What if that person would one day become the Pope? Stay with me until the end of this video, because what I'm about to share will touch your heart, make you think, and maybe change the way you see people who are different from you. In the comments, let me know where you're watching from and how old you are in so much. And if you believe in honest stories about growth, faith, and hope, be sure to give this a like. It helps more than you know. Now, let me take you back to the winter of 1998. In a small church on Chicago's South Side, where everything changed, I still can't believe I'm telling this story, because the man who changed me, who taught me to see people differently, was not yet the Pope. Back then, he was just Fr. Robert Pivist, a young priest at St. Rita's Church. To be honest, I didn't like him. I didn't trust him. In my heart, I thought he represented everything I had learned to resent about religion: arrogance, judgment, distance. I made sure he knew it. I thought he would never understand someone like me, but that January morning as I walked into the church, bitter and guarded, I had no idea my life was about to shift. I settled into my usual pew coat on, ready to leave as soon as the service ended. I was still carrying the wound from a few years earlier. My father, brutally attacked in our driveway by 3 young black men. He survived, but he wasn't the same. And somewhere along the way, that pain hardened me, built walls between me and God's truth about people. That day I wasn't looking for mercy or healing. I just wanted a moment of quiet, but in walked Fr. Robert, a tall, confident young black priest smiling at everyone. He greeted a young man who looked restless, pulled from the back of the church into a seat near the front. My heart thundered. I thought I recognized him from whispered stories in the neighborhood. My guard snapped up, I judged, and I spoke. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" "Watching you. You were about to steal that bag." The air felt fragile. That young man looked stunned. Fr. Robert stepped between us and spoke calmly. "Let's take a breath. There's no need for shouting." My anger flared, but something in his measured tone unmoored me. I demanded what I thought was mine to say. He met my gaze not with judgment, but with deep steadiness. No words yet, just seeing me. And then he asked if I could stay after. I froze. But something pulled me to follow. We sat in a small side room with a radiator quietly hissing. He poured coffee. I told him my story, how my father's ribs shattered, how the men who attacked him had been black. I told him about the fear I carried, but also my ignorance. He listened, his eyes gentle. No lectures, just attention. He explained that the boy I accused had been helping at the church for months, that his family trusted him, that the church was the only safe place for him. When he spoke, my defenses faltered. He named what fear does. It paints shadows and forgets truth. He spoke of wounds passed down from slavery, segregation, neighborhood lines that are drawn not just by maps, but by history. I was trembling. I wanted to resent him, to push back. But his soft words cracked open something inside me. He said, "Jesus didn't ask us to love only people who look like us. No exceptions." I fought the urge to stay angry. I whispered, "I don't know how to do that anymore." He said gently, "That's okay. We can figure it out together." That night, I left the church, snow falling, and I felt something lighter, like a first breath after holding it too long. Over the coming weeks, my heart changed little by little. I didn't cross the street when young men walked toward me. I offered nods instead of stares. I asked someone, "How's school?" and meant it. My prayers stopped begging God to keep them away and started asking God to help me see people as He does. And when Robert arrived in Rome in 2025 as Pope Leo XIV, the first American pope in history, I cried, because the man who changed me with quiet courage, not grand sermons, was now sent to lead millions. He sees people, not just their face, but the story behind it, the wounds they carry and the hope still alive inside. And He listens deeply. So I want to thank you for staying with me on this long journey. If this story touched you even just a little, please consider liking this video. It helps more than you can imagine. If you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button so you don't miss the next story. Share it with someone who might. be carrying a wound someone who needs to know they're not alone and that change is possible. And if you'd like, tell me in the comments, what little crack in your own heart opened you to something bigger? You've heard how that tense moment in a Chicago church and one quiet conversation began to softening my heart. But what happened next truly shaped who I'd become and why I believe that meeting mattered far beyond our small church. Stay with me till the end of this video, because I want you to see how change can ripple out from the smallest moments. If you've ever wrestled with your own bias or felt stuck because of a past hurt, you're not alone. And at the end, I'd love to hear what's changed in your world, where you're watching from, and how old you are. A like really helps if you believe in honest stories that lean into hope instead of fear. After that first conversation, I didn't wake up transformed. Change didn't feel dramatic or immediate. Instead, it felt subtle, almost invisible at first, like water slowly softening stone. A few days later, I made eye contact with the boy I'd accused at a food pantry. I offered a nod. That small gesture felt huge inside me. Later that week, I found myself holding the door open for a group of teens whose presence would have once kept me silent. I said hello and meant it. I began noticing the difference fear made in my prayers. I no longer prayed to keep people away. I prayed to see them as God sees them. I asked for courage to treat people fairly, not merely safely. I said this was hard not because love is easy, but because fear and hurt run deep. And when they do, the moral thing is choosing love anyway. Then spring came. I started looking at my community differently. I accepted a request to help teach art at the community center near the church. It was mostly older women, but there were also young black mothers learning to sell crafts. At first, I was quiet. I didn't know what to say. Some days, I just listened. On others, I laughed, shared stories, invited others to join in. Conversations grew, bonds formed. I learned their names. I saw their talents. I saw their love. Meanwhile, I stayed connected to Fr. Robert, though I didn't call him that anymore. I thought of him as Robert. After that conversation, he asked, sometimes gently, sometimes with real curiosity, how I was doing. Some mornings, he'd ask about my dad's health. Other times, he'd ask about what I'd noticed lately, what small gestures of kindness I'd seen or taken part in. I'll never forget one night in spring when he called. He asked if I'd bring soup to a family whose house had burned down. I hesitated. It was out of my comfort zone. But he said simply, "This is the church we go," so I did. And while some old fear still pulsed in me that evening, what I felt afterward was something new. Not peace exactly, something softer, a quiet warmth that told me I could be brave, even when scared. By summer, relationships formed across lines that once scared me. I met mothers whose kids smiled at my husband when he walked by. I learned stories of parents working multiple jobs just to keep their family afloat. The more I saw those lives, the more I understood they weren't stories from the news. They were real people, our neighbors, carrying burdens and hopes just like anyone else. Years rolled on. My husband and I moved into a quieter life after he retired. But my community grew deeper. I kept teaching. I kept volunteering, and every so often I'd hear news about Robert. He had done a mission trip to Peru. He helped rebuild schools. Then to Africa, then back to Chicago, and eventually to Rome. Every update I heard reminded me of that day we talked over coffee in the parish hall. Then came that day in 2025, the news that changed everything again. The chimney of the Sistine Chapel sent up white smoke, and I realized the man who had shared that quiet truth with me had become Pope Leo XIV, the first American ever elected pope. I stood in my kitchen, onion juice dripping off my fingers, tears in my eyes, because I knew exactly who he was, who he had been for me, the gentle man who cracked open my heart. The teacher I had refused to see. Now he leads millions, but I know he still speaks the way he did that first night. He listens. He sees people beneath their wounds. He shows us all a way to love beyond fear. So what does all this mean for you? It means there's hope even in rooms that feel cold. That change begins in a single conversation, not from preaching, but from listening. That fear can be softened. When someone meets you not with judgment, but with questions, maybe your own wound made you hold back. Maybe there's someone who scares you because of past hurts. That doesn't mean you have to stay stuck. You can ask God for the courage to see beyond your hurt. You can offer a small act of kindness. You can say, "Let me hold that door." How was your day? I see you. That doesn't erase history, but it can start something new. If this story inspired you, even a little thank you for staying with me. Please consider liking this video. Such a small click helps more people hear stories of real hope,